Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you started and how you got into developing and architecture, and
Sure.
tell us just a brief overview of your story.
Sure. Well, I came to Arizona in 1995, and I think my first venture into real estate was when I moved here. I bought a condo instead of renting. Right. So I bought a condo. I think my mom gave me a $7,000 loan. I lived at Papago Park 2 over down McClintock. And
How old were you when you bought that condo?
what's your age?
19, 20?
Maybe 21.
It's pretty young to buy your first.
21. Anyway, so I moved out here. I wanted to change. I moved from Illinois, where I grew up, to and I chose Arizona because I just needed change.
Mm-hmm.
Weather, school, just everything. So that's how I started in real estate. So I graduated from ASU, graduate school, master of architecture, and then I bought a house with 3 guys.
Like you all split it?
We split it, yeah.
Is that a good idea?
Well, I'm still here, right?
Whose name was on the loan?
It was all 3 of us.
Oh,
wow.
It was one of these first time home buyer, 3% down. Right, we bought a house in Tempe, and then after a year, I moved out, kept my share, bought a house downtown in one of the historic districts, and then eventually 2 of us sold the house to one of the partners, and then I remodeled the place downtown, and then I bought another house, and so I was doing that for a while. Eventually got married, then I got into buying rental properties with some other couples, where we would just buy them as investment properties, and then we'd say, okay, what would we do to live in here? Like, so that was the magic combination, right? It's like, okay, buy it in a good location. Basically, everything was in Arcadia Light area, and so we'd be like, okay, we'd have the wives go through and, well, what would you want? So we'd put like, I don't know, 20 grand into each property, and then it would lease immediately.
Yeah, but like a thoughtful renovation, not just like
it wasn't
the cheapest
like
stuff and get it out.
Yeah, we would do something somewhat meaningful, and then we just held it. That was like the last big surge. That was pre 2008. So we bought everything in like 2004 and 5, and sold in 7.
You did.
So
you got out of
like all these properties doubled. We just got out by chance.
Wow.
It was just
wow.
Because it was like, wow, I can't believe how much these things have increased in value. It seemed like a lot of money to us at the time.
How did you?
It's pure luck.
Yeah,
honestly
were you guys ready to reinvest and go buy some more, and you were kind of waiting, and then you saw things turn, or what?
I'm trying to remember what led to it. In a couple cases, we had tenants that wanted to buy the house, and they were willing to pay the 2x on it. So like all these properties we bought for $200 to $240, and then we ended up selling for like $400 to $450, $470 maybe was the top.
It was all single family, or
all single family, yeah. And then through that, just through relationships, we got into buying or being passive investors in apartments.
Like through a syndication group or something?
Yep. So got into a couple of apartment deals, and it's those kind of foundational moves. So it's like a $7,000 loan from my mom in 1995. Turned into $1 million+ 10 years later, and that was this kind of seed capital to do the things that I'm doing now.
Yeah.
So, I've had I'm an architect. That's what I went to school for, right? But now I'm so much more than that, right? So architecture paid the bills over the years.
Did you like freelance or like take on clients as an architect?
Yeah, I always worked for a firm with
Mm-hmm.
lots of different shapes and sizes. So I've worked for the biggest firm in the country, which is Gensler, in a leadership role. I've worked in large scale national practices. I've had my own practice. I've worked for boutique practices that, worked at the highest levels doing, work for the federal government and all across the country. So I've had a lot of exposure on the architectural side to, the highest end stuff.
I saw online that both your parents were teachers. How'd you get into architecture? Did someone push you that direction, or did you just?
No, I wouldn't say I wasn't pushed. I just gravitated in that direction.
Just grew up playing with Legos?
I don't know. As a kid, grew up with like lots of Legos.
Yeah.
And my dad was a teacher, so he had summers off, and so he was always building stuff. So I helped him build the basement. I grew up building models, and so I just had like some craft skills.
Mm-hmm.
And then, back when I was in high school, they had technical classes, drafting and stuff like that, which they don't. I guess they're bringing some of that stuff back now. I mean,
some
now,
of the best classes,
the practical stuff,
right?
Yeah, that really you use.
We need
your
it,
life.
right? Like Votech was a thing when I was in college. Like they had auto shop and all, and now we have a shortage of all these skilled trades, right?
Yeah.
My plumber probably makes more than I do from a salary basis, right? So I kind of, as a kid, was exposed to some of these things that really led to the skill set as an architect, right? So I could draw well, and I understood space, and I knew how to pound a nail, and I worked in a lumber yard in between school and framed houses, and so I knew enough to be dangerous, and that's kind of how I got into real estate and development. Ultimately, I would do a lot of the work on a lot of the houses that we've moved in. And
so you like swinging a hammer as well?
I'm not afraid.
Yeah,
I'm not afraid. I really I really have learned to appreciate these guys that work their butts off out there in the heat. I joke to Elena, like, I'm out there for 3 hours. I'm exhausted, right? It's hot. It's not even hot yet. I'm out there.
Yeah.
These guys are out there like 10 hours a day, right?
It's unbelievable. And they're whistling while they work.
And a lot of them are smiling. Yeah. I mean, I got guys in my site that they're smiling. I'm like, you're awesome. So that's kind of how I, in a nutshell, how I got to where I am today. That first real estate acquisition as a graduate student really was foundational to get me to where I was, to have the financial tools to be able to control my destiny and some of the real estate things I've done.
When you go look back a little bit, are you glad you chose architecture? What would you do different? What would you do the same as far as what you studied? And then, if you hadn't studied architecture, what are the areas of study that you think would have been beneficial to what you've ended up doing that would have been a good secondary?
Yeah, good question. So I kind of have a love-hate relationship with architecture because I've had a great career and I've received some really good awards and things like that. So I've been successful as an architect, but I've always been, let's say, I had more of an entrepreneurial spirit to me. And so that's led to some of the real estate things that I've done. So I mean, hindsight's 20/20, you never know, but what I could have used, it's like nobody ever taught me how to do a pro forma. Yeah. I learned to do a pro forma on my own by basically looking at Jonathan Siegel's work in San Diego. Right. I went to his class in 2007 that he did his first ever architect as developer deal. And there was probably 100 people from Phoenix there, 800 people in the room. Guys like Will Bruder were there. And it was packed, and that's how I learned. Yeah. Just by doing and, making a few mistakes, but not anything severe enough to, be detrimental to what I'm doing.
Because I studied finance.
Yeah.
So I learned how to build a pro forma.
Right.
But if you just know how to do that, then you're also limited to, you don't have a skill set beyond the numbers. Yeah. I've kind of come to the opinion that if you can be really good at two of these things, maybe raising capital and all the capital side and the building side, that's kind of where the magic happens. If you're really good at one thing, that's great, but you're going to need a really good partner in some of these other areas, to help raise capital or and that's just our business. But if you can be really good at two things, it's kind of necessary in our world. It's kind of tough to be an entrepreneur, especially if you're going to be an entrepreneur to just be good at one thing. Then you need to maybe continue to work in a company. If you're a great architect, you just continue to work in the big firms, and you will probably thrive there.
It's a highly paid skill still, yeah.
Yeah, it's, look, I feel like I've had a lot of success as an architect, but I've been exposed to development clients along the way that have, my entrepreneurial spirit gravitated to what they were doing.
Yep.
And, some of the things that I've done personally to build wealth along the way outside of architecture, it's like I was moving on two paths simultaneously, and eventually they converged.
Yeah.
And so I feel like the skill set that I have as an architect helped contribute to my ability to be successful in development. And so I think, my sort of niche, if I have a niche that's emerging, is that, I feel like I can deliver a higher quality product that's really designed well that a lot of people aren't doing. And that's not to say I'm bagging on anybody else. I'm just saying, like, that's my thing, right? I get how to deliver good design at an attainable price point. And as hard as that is, I enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I think the built environment is filled with a lot of ugly stuff, and everybody should be doing better than we are. Like, we can make money and build a more beautiful environment.
Yeah, because your ability to do what you do now is obviously kind of a fusion of all the stuff you've done throughout your life. And let's say you had just studied business or marketing or entrepreneurship, and you didn't get that core skill set of architecture. I think it's easier to figure out the business stuff, the pro forma, along the way than it would, getting the architecture. But
maybe.
That if you had just kind of been the business route, you would have never been able to really sink your teeth into that. And that's kind of the ongoing thing with young, folks in school that are trying to figure out what I should do. Should I study business and just be a business person, or should I go get a engineering degree or a architecture degree or construction management or something?
Yeah. I guess I would say it's my total skill set is somewhat unique. I don't think most architects could do what I'm doing,
right?
Because one, they may not want to,
Sure.
right? Two, it just requires a little bit more entrepreneurial. You have to be willing to risk, like I said, I feel like my background as an architect actually was foundational to help me do what I'm doing, but some of the personal choices I've made along the way have really contributed to the two things have kind of converged, right? And so when they first converged, it was primarily, with Art House, which happened to be, one path that I was on, which was architecture. I was a partner in national practice, and we got caught in the recession, and, we got out of the recession late here. Right. So in 2012, I was out of a job.
Yeah.
Right. And, that's really when I put my entrepreneurial hat on and figured out how to dig out. Right. The options were move somewhere else and take that skill set and apply it somewhere else, or kind of double down on the relationships and, things that we had created and invested in Arizona. So my wife and I said, hey, we're going to stick it out. And, that's how Art House was born, basically through relationships. Don Kuth, actually, Phoenix Community Alliance, old president, introduced me to the site downtown for Art House, which was a kind of remnant parcel. And, I was looking for something like that and found it, and just lines crossed, and eventually got hold of the property and started that in 2013 and finished the project and finished building it in 16. We didn't sell all the units until maybe February of 2019. So
it's a long project.
I mean, these projects, they can take 3 to 5 years, the market's a little different with Karma, right? So Karma,
it's gonna sell a little faster than 3 years.
a lot faster. Yeah. Total project cycle on Karma will probably be maybe 30 months.
Yeah.
But even then, 30 months is still a long time.
Yeah.
Right?
So I've had a little bit more experience now the last few years with neighborhood ventures, with real estate development. But you talk about Art House. If you just kind of break down what you have to do to make something like that happen. You talked about you had to acquire the land, had to be the right place. Right?
So there's a lot of people that want to get into real estate development, but there's a lot of skills that you need to get into it. And like when I was naive like last year, and I was like, when I was reaching out to people, like Jameson was one of them, I wanted to be like, I was hoping I could just hop right into real estate development and start just buying property like you see all these people on social media talking about, but it's just not that easy. There's a lot that goes into it. It's like, what does it take? Like, what do you need? What skills do you need to start like developing?
Yeah, skills and resources.
Yeah.
Skill.
Which I had neither.
You gotta have a few guts, right? You gotta be willing to risk a few things. I mean, look, fundamentally, I have architects come to me all the time, like kids in school at ASU. The faculty send them over to me. Like I think like, oh, he's got it figured out. I don't have it figured out, right? 100%. I'm figuring it out as I go, and hopefully I'm not making too many mistakes, so I can continue to figure it out, right? I mean, I always tell people you have to first and foremost have some fundamental experience that contributes to the path of development. So whether it's finance or real estate background or an architectural background or a construction background, you've got to have, or I guess you could have a law background, right? But, if you think about all the components that go into it, there's a legal component, there's a design component, there's a construction component, there's a real estate component, and there's a business component. Or maybe it's a finance component.
Yep.
Business runs through all 5 of those spheres that I just talked about, right? So you could be brilliant, but at any one of those things, but if you don't know how to apply your skill set across the gamut, then you'll never do development successfully, right? If you're just a number cruncher and that's all you do, I mean, look, when's the last time you went into a deal and it didn't feel slightly risky, right? But by the time you get done, 7 out of 10 times, you're like, oh, feels good,
yeah,
right? I mean, once in a while you get in trouble, but it's it's about positioning. What's your A, B, and C plan to get out if you need to.
Do you think you need to develop a skill set in either one of those kind of spheres or categories?
Yeah.
Or and partner with someone to
like
kind of
I
fill
get
the
these
rest,
kids that
or...
are like, oh, I want to do what you're doing. And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, you're not just showing up.
Mhm.
I mean, first of all, you need to, if you want to be an architect, you need to be an architect first and foremost. And like, you need to work at a small firm, a big firm, medium firm, work for yourself, do some side work, do some things that will help you prove out whether or not you have the skill set to be sustainable in a business environment yourself. And then, once you have that foundational, you have some experience and you have some relationships, then you can start to do some networking, because networking isn't just about showing up and asking for help. It's like, well, how can I help you too? Right. It's like,
I have this to offer you.
Exactly.
You have this.
Right. If you show up with your hand out, but you have nothing to offer,
it's not a great way to start
a relationship. Great way to start a relationship. Relationship.
Me.
Relationship's a two-way street, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I always think about it that way when I'm going to meet people, and the things that were hardest for me were raising capital, learning how to raise capital. I mean, I would go in and I would talk to somebody And, I'd wait 6 weeks for them to tell me no. Right. And meanwhile, what I should have been doing is talking to like 20 people all in the same week and following up relentlessly. And so I learned the hard way that the next best thing to a yes is a fast no. Right. So you just, I give permission to tell people to tell me no.
Yeah.
So now when I go meet them, I'm like, look, this is what I'm doing. This is my project. Here's the performa. Here's the payback. Here's the design credentials. I give them the broad overview, and I always make sure they know, like, look, you're not hurting my feelings if you tell me no, but you are hurting my feelings if you take 6 weeks to tell me no.
Yeah.
Right. So I give them permission to, like, because some people, they
don't like to say no.
Yeah. And so I learned that no's good, really good.
So you are an architect, you are a developer, and you raise the capital on your projects. Now you do the whole gamut.
Yeah. But look, I'm not. I'm a really good architect. I've become a builder. I've done some good development work. I'm not great at raising capital. And
I was going to say you're Superman if you can do all that. Because
I mean, look, I raise capital based on outcomes.
Yeah.
Right. So my first deal was primarily friends and family. I had one guy that came in that was a big chunk that wasn't family or friend, and now he's a friend, and he's invested in other projects. So, and like it took me a year to raise the debt and equity on Karma or Art House. It took me, I don't know, a month to do it on Karma. Well, different time, but I had track record, and all the guys that were in on Art House came in on Karma, and then I just had a small additional chunk.
How much total capital do you have to raise for like Art House? Is that several million?
Geez, Art House was total capital stack was maybe 7 million. Yeah. It was like 75-25.
Yeah, debt to equity.
Debt to equity. Karma is 65-35.
Yeah. Who did the debt for you? Did you get a kind of a gray money or a bank?
Art House?
Yeah.
Art House was private capital.
Okay, for the debt.
Yeah, for the debt. Yeah.
You remember what you paid on it?
10%.
10%.
Yeah, 10%, 2 points.
Yeah, and then but kind of that was your first big project.
That was and I got it just by sheer resilience.
Yeah.
I mean, it took a while.
You have to just get that first project done. I mean,
to
build that credibility with investors, and then you have to. Everyone knows if you get one over the line that you have some skills that will probably lead you over the line in the future.
And to your point about what's it take experience wise and things like that, it also takes money.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't just show up and say, well, I want to do this, right? It's like when you actually are putting your own money in the deal, like meaningful money. I'm not talking about like $100,000. I'm talking about a meaningful chunk, 20% or more of the capital of the equity requirement at least.
In the first few deals.
That resonates with your investors. They feel good about that because they know you have real money in the deal, right? So I've always had a controlling stake. I mean, I've always been the manager, and my operating agreements are written in such a way that I have control, but I've always had the largest equity stake as well.
Personally.
In the deals that I've done. That's huge. And so the investors that I have, they like that. But going forward, I need to be maturing my own approach and probably be having a little less. Still, I would still probably put in a substantial amount, but maybe not as much as I have been doing, just so that I can do more deals simultaneously.
So the deal that you're doing right now, Karma, which I used to live right in that neighborhood, so I saw everything that was happening there before we even met you, and I was like, okay, they're onto something cool here. And then I saw the designs come out. Can you kind of talk to us about that kind of high level? What was the the big dream there with the design, the way that the neighborhood is set up to launch that.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, much of the key to success in real estate is location, right? So I was introduced to one of 3 parcels by a broker, and I said, I like it, but I need these two other parcels. So I sent that guy back, and he was able to get control of those other 2 parcels, and eventually I entered into an LOI, or I sent in an LOI. You guys will appreciate this. And they took a higher offer. So he was marketing me to get the deal, but at the same time, he was marketing other people, right?
Sure.
So they took a higher number. This was November of 2019. And guess who called back in March of 2020?
Yeah, they bailed on it.
They bailed. COVID hit.
Yeah.
They bailed. And so they came back and said, would you do the deal? I said, yes, for my number, I'll do the deal. Oh. So we eventually I think June 25th of 2020, we entered into a contract, and then we closed in February of 21, started demo in February of 21, and started construction, with all the infrastructure and road improvements and stuff like that in April.
And there was so much uncertainty at that time. And this just kind of goes to show the amount of courage it takes to be in this business, because there was a ton of uncertainty around March, April, May of 2020. Yeah. We had one of our projects in escrow to sell, and the folks had a lot of earnest money that was that was hard, meaning it wasn't going to go back to them. And they decided to cancel March of 2020 just because of the uncertainty. Mm-hmm. And one of them was a very intelligent guy economically in the state, without saying too much. But he was so uncertain, they let several, tens of thousands of dollars go to earnest money. And we said, okay, we'll take it back and we'll go sell it again. And, 6 months later, that person was kicking themselves because real estate values in 2020 just were so strong, and it's not even stopped till now on a monthly basis. So, but at the time, you stepped in and said, we're going to take it at the lower price. And amid all the uncertainty, you had the conviction that you could make it happen.
What gave you the confidence to just do that, like through COVID? Did you not think? Did you kind of think the market would stay?
You ultimately you have to believe, right? So you got to do your homework. You got to do due diligence. You got to know the neighborhood. You have to have an opinion of value. You have to ultimately you got to believe, right? I mean, most people wouldn't have done Art House. And now they look at it like, oh, that's amazing. And I think it's one of the best infill projects that have been done in the downtown Midtown corridor. But and I think Karma was a lot easier to see on paper, and I think I had a good design. I knew what was missing in the market, or I had an opinion of what was missing. Yep. Right. I mean, ultimately, it's about is your deal match up with what the market wants or needs, right? And sometimes you set the market, sometimes you follow the market, and hopefully you don't lose. Hopefully not on the downside.
With Karma, there's a space next door, like a house, single family house, I know was for sale at some point. Mm-hmm. Did you try to get some of the other stuff as well, and they weren't moving?
Yeah, I did. Tried to get the piece to the east.
Yeah,
I tried to get that. So
I think it was for sale. Actually,
it is
still.
I think it's still for sale. So they closed. It was a California investor that purchased it for $1.2 million, and now they're trying to flip it for $2.2 with an entitlement.
Okay.
But they haven't sold it, and now they're planning on putting in the infrastructure.
Okay.
Which I think is a bad move personally, because I think it takes some of the upside away from whoever might come in and buy it.
Right.
But it's too rich for me.
Yeah.
If you get into the land at too high of a basis, it just taints the deal all the way through. And so it's already risky what you're doing. And if you have a high land basis, it's just
and you have to be disciplined
tough.
enough to stick with what you
Right.
believe in, what you know you can execute. How many units, how many houses are you building at Karma?
Karma's 11.
Yeah.
11 single family homes, basically 3 floor plans based on a variation. And
these are $1 million homes, north of.
They are, yeah, actually upgraded. Or I think our lowest price point is going to be with upgrades like 1.3. So all 11 will close somewhere between 1.3 and probably 1.65.
Yeah.
So you raised $7 million on Art House? Is that right?
Art House was 7. Yeah.
You raising more on this one then, or is it?
Yeah. Karma's structured a little bit differently. I have a line of credit on Karma for the debt component. The equity was 2.7, but the line of credit was 4 million basically. And I did a line of credit because I didn't want to. Basically, I could phase the building.
Yep.
Right. You're not going to build 11 houses at the same time anyway. So this way, I'm working east to west, and so we'll deliver the first home at the end of May.
Okay.
Right. And so I'll start to pay it down. And so it just, the cash flow works pretty well.
Yeah, and Art House was those are condos.
Those are condos, which is infamously difficult to finance and sell the first, because you have to find a lender who will do the retail loans and portfolio them. Right. So
because to do a loan on a condo, the units all have to be basically done.
Yeah.
For a typical loan before they'll do a financing. So doing that first one makes it challenging.
You got to get to 40%, right, before they can sell the loans. Before a bank can sell the loans to a.
It's a silly thing. I mean, because it just there needs to be more lower cost housing, but nobody wants to do condos because they're so difficult.
It's a lot. It's risky. Yeah, there's a lot. You got to have a lot of insurance and. It's a lot of reasons not to do it. Right?
So when do you and do you have any of those units, Karma units, already sold?
Yeah. Sales have been fantastic.
Yeah.
So we opened in July of 2021 and we sold one like the first week. And by Christmas, I think we had, 4 or 5 sold, Elena?
Yeah, you're ahead of schedule.
And I mean, we just inked another one this morning.
Yeah.
So we're 8, and we have a 9th one that we're working through some financing things, pre-qualified financing. So we've got between 8 and 9 under contract. Off paper, right? We don't have one. We have no model.
Right.
We just got like good renderings, good collateral, good press, good people.
Well, all of the stuff that you did was done really well so that someone could easily see what this is going to end up being.
Thank you.
I live in Willow District, and the back of my house is on Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
Were you concerned with the homes being close to Bethany?
100%. Yeah, it was the biggest wild card.
Yeah.
And it's the only objection to the project.
Yeah.
It's the only objection that people have had is, well, I don't want to be on Bethany.
Right.
And the problem is I've got 6 homes off Bethany and 5 on Bethany. And of course the 6 off Bethany were pretty much the first ones to sell.
Right.
Right. I mean, we released them strategically. So we worked east to west. So we held back some of the ones on Bethany or some of the ones off Bethany so that we could get a few more. And then we just priced them kind of accordingly to get a few more motivated buyers.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, the people that bought on Bethany they come from more urban areas.
Yeah.
They're used to more noise.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, it's no big deal.
Yeah.
And so you're trying to do more projects like this moving forward? Because is this all under the company of Boyer Vertical?
It's all, so Boyer Vertical is my sort of umbrella. That's the development entity.
Yeah.
Right. And then within Boyer Vertical is my, I've got a design entity, and then I've got a construction entity, and then a property management entity.
And is this all sort of in-house, or are you still working with other clients as well?
Right now I'm my own, own ball of wax.
Yeah.
Right. So right now it basically the way I set up these companies is that, Boyer Vertical is the developer. It gets a fee for developing the projects. It goes out and finds the investors. Then you create a project specific entity, which develops the project, right? And that entity hires the architect, hires the contractor, and they just happen to be me, right? I have contractual separations in there, but at the end of the day, all of the issues are managed through me. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it's really about creating a risk alignment model that I could control, right? If I hire a contractor, there's things I can't control, right? That contractor's most concerned about meeting his or her schedule and making money, right? That architect that I would hire is concerned about getting the most possible design and making money, right?
Yep.
So I've taken all those things and combined them so that I can align the risks and align the decision-making process to find the most value. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah. Do you think you're going to do more projects like this moving forward? Or are you going to try and do these projects? Probably pretty complicated.
I'm going on vacation.
Going on vacation?
Yeah, no. My two biggest challenges are time and money. Time and money, right? I don't have enough time and I don't have enough money. Okay, and I need to grow my team, and I need money to grow my team, right? Because if I hire you, you want to be paid, right? Mm-hmm. You don't want to worry about not being paid, right? And I worry about not paying you if I hire you, right? Does it make sense? Mm-hmm. So it's a sort of maturation of a business model, and getting Karma done will give me the seed capital I need to kind of roll more confidently into the next things. And I have some things like in the works that I'm working on.
Of course you do.
I mean, you know how it is, right? But I'm also inherently conservative. Yeah. So I'm not one to just like throw something on the wall and, get a sort of arbitrary LOI that's not really worth much. Yeah. Because I feel like I'm, my reputation is important, and how I go about my business is important, and setting the a track record for, the next. It's a small community, right? You're doing the same thing, right? So you want to develop a reputation for being able to execute and do good quality stuff, and
and pay people back their money.
Exactly.
And a little bit of extra.
Yeah. Like you put a smile on their face and they'll come back for more.
By the way, I lived in New York before I moved here, and I developed a real love for architecture there. I mean, you come to Phoenix, and a lot of stuff was just kind of put up quickly, apartment buildings, and it's like, how do we get as many units out there? So I love that folks like you are going back in and saying, how do we make this building a unique and in the way I see it is like art, because we live in it, we see it every day, and Phoenix needs more of that. And people like Michael Levine that's down in Warehouse District doing the same thing with these old warehouses, trying to keep that culture and in building. So love what you're doing, and we need more of that in Phoenix.
For sure we do.
People who live here and love it.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that you saying that. It's like I said, it's not for everybody, but everybody can do. I think we can all do a better job of making sure that the work we do, the projects we create, the things we leave behind have a legacy and have a value that contributes to other people's lives, right? Because we're stuck with these things, right? I mean, even the worst building might have a 20-year lifespan. They're going to be there for
it's going to be there a while,
right? And so let's do something that contributes to the neighborhood, that maybe has a little bit more of a sustainable footprint to it, that that others can, learn from and benefit from.
And when you're talking about the need in the market, I think that is a huge need in our market, because we have folks moving here from all over, and that's, someone like me, that's my taste. Yeah. I don't want to live in just a brown house that looks like everything next down for miles around it. One funny thing in New York, when I first got to the office, Goldman Sachs office, there's no sign on the building that says Goldman Sachs, and it's actually kind of hard to find it. It's like 200 West was our address, and I just kind of started asking around, and I noticed there's very few signs on the buildings there, the big, high rises, and the reason is because the architects and the people who build it, they don't want to make it look commercial with the sign. The building stands on its own. And I just thought that was just indicative of how they view it.
I mean, I think what you're speaking to is like there's different values placed on design and real estate in different parts of the country. And so Phoenix has for the longest time been a B market, right? And to some degree it still is, despite being the 5th largest per capita market, right? But it's not a design first economy. Right. It's always been driven by real estate and broker decisions. The architects and builders are often marginalized. And in today's world, I'd say the builders have even taken more of a step forward and push the design and the architecture to the background. And so, which is not by any coincidence why I am doing what I'm doing, which is so that I can have more control of my deals.
Yeah. So I have a couple of buddies at college who, when you ask them what they want to do, they say, "Oh, real estate development." And then you ask them like, "Why do you want to do it?" They say, "Well, that's where the money is." And then I'm like, "So what's your plan like to get there?" Because they're like freshmen, sophomores in college, and they're like, "I don't know. I'm just a business major. I'm just gonna right out of college just start developing real estate." What would you say? Like, what advice would you give to someone like that who just says, "Oh, I'm just gonna get into real estate development because that's where the money is"? Like, what would you say to a college student?
I would say they're probably part of the problem because they're starting from a motivation of pure money. Mm-hmm. And look, I'm motivated by money, pure and simple, 100%. Like, there's the happiest day of my month is when I get paid. Okay. But I believe fundamentally that you should, if you're going to like do something meaningful with your life, you need to create outcomes that contribute to your neighborhood, your community, that your kids are going to be proud of. You got to have some sort of core sensibilities about what you're going to do. So, I'm a mentor in ASU has this Master's of Real Estate Development class, MRED. Yep. Mark Stapp runs the program. And so I typically am a mentor on their capstone class. And I mean, I see it where it's finance guys and they really don't have any skill set, and they get in this final, I'm saying that wrong. They have skill set. They don't have any skill set as it relates to design or construction or real estate primarily. They can put a spreadsheet together and whatnot. And so, and I see these guys and they get pushed together, guys and gals, into these groups. And some of them have good skills and some of them don't. Some of them can just put a spreadsheet together. So I think a little more appreciation and taking time to educate yourself about what drives the holistic real estate development platform, right? Because if you're not open to making the right decisions, placing value in certain design decisions, and I'm not advocating for that design should go crazy, right? At the end of the day, you got to design to a pro forma, and you got to deliver, right? So I have the discipline in order to do that myself. But what I would say to aspiring developers that are, freshmen, sophomore through seniors in college, whichever college it is throughout the country, university throughout the country, is that they should take the time to educate themselves more in architecture and construction and travel and go see some things that can actually influence and form your own individual ability to create something beautiful in the environment, right?
Yeah. I think that's great advice. It's not a get rich quick advice.
It's not.
But it's
it's not about like how quick you can get to a whatever kind of car, right?
Right.
If that's what you're after, it's wrong, right? So I mean, there's plenty of places out there that need people just to crank something out, sit in the corner and do performas or whatever. But what I think differentiates an individual's ability to contribute to an organization or go out on their own and create something is whether or not you can put together the pieces of the puzzle, right? You have a vision for creating something, right? And what drives that vision could be lots of different things, but you have to have somewhat more of a cosmopolitan attitude in order to create something that has some lasting merit benefit, right? Yeah. And that's I think what separates us. I mean, Phoenix is filled with great architecture. It's just covered by a lot of the really bad shit that's out there. But there's great architects here capable of doing really great work, and a lot of them are doing work all around the country and the world. But some of the decisions that are made on the real estate side are driven by pure real estate metrics that aren't necessarily, they're not putting design and aspects of community on a level playing field with some of the other metrics they're using to determine whether or not they do a deal, right? So I'm advocating for that. I'm doing that, right?
And proving it that it actually has
because it can be done. And I mean, look, we're getting record-setting cost per square foot numbers on Karma. Art House, the people that live there love it. They live there because of the design, and the people that continue to come, and people that move out, and new people that come in, they gravitate to it because of the design. So design's a differentiator. And so if you get that and you can put the right group of people together that can deliver a better quality product, and I would say 8 out of 10 times you can deliver good design at the same price point as you can shitty design. It's just about how you put the team together and how you execute.
This has been a great conversation. These are usually about 25, 30 minutes, and we're well over that. But one final question, and this is kind of a little stepping back, but what books or couple of books are meaningful to you? Do you recommend to folks that you pass out to folks?
Oh man, I'll tell you that my favorite book has nothing to do with real estate, but it has everything to do with entrepreneurship. And it's called Little Black Stretchy Pants. And it's the story of the founder of Lululemon.
Yeah.
And the guy's incredibly honest, and he just tells you all of the things that he went through building that company. He describes the battles with the board as the company grew, the challenges of sourcing fabric, and why it was important to have a flat seam stitch instead of the conventional stitch, on your shirt, right? Yeah. Comfort, design. It's an incredible book. Yeah. And for me, I actually read that book. I think I read that book in 2020, which happened to be the summer that I was really founding Boyer Vertical, like figuring out the mechanics of the business structure and how the entities would work and commingle with each other. So there's so many lessons to be drawn out of that book. And he does a podcast too,
yeah,
which is super cool to follow. But that I recommend that to anybody that has an entrepreneurial spirit, that's struggled and questioning what they're doing, or wants to do what we're talking about. Right, they should read that book.
And I mean, he created a company. I'm wearing Lulu head to toe most days because it's comfortable, because of the design.
Yeah, absolutely,
lasts so well. But did a similar thing in clothing. Women's and athletic clothing initially, and now men's clothing too, that you're doing in real estate by saying, design matters. It's not just about cost. It's not just about bottom, race to the bottom. It's how do we do this better in an area that was saturated, with lower end product that seemed to be working for folks. So that's a great. I've heard that now a couple of times. Was it you that mentioned it? So once you hear, a couple of times, I believe in karma. So I mean, you hear it a couple times in a short amount of time. Now I need to read that.
Yeah, Boyer Vertical is the Lululemon of real estate.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow. That's a stretch, but I'll take it. It's a good way to go. It's yeah. I mean, look, I think it's been proven time and time again. I mean, there's this sort of evolutionary thing where people are investing more and more in their lifestyle choices. And I used to tell people on Art House, and it's 100% proven itself through on Karma, that like, look, if you spend as much time thinking about your living environment as you do what kind of car you're going to drive, you would be living in a much nicer, well-designed place.
Yeah.
Right? And it doesn't have to even be all that. It's just some of the choices. There's little choices that you can make that make a big difference.
Yeah.
Or there's big choices you can make. But I think as that soundbite's matured, and with the advent of COVID, and now people spend more time at home, Karma really flipped that on its toes. And so I said, hey, we actually rebooted the floor plans during that period and redesigned the whole floor plan to create this sort of a more intentional connection between indoor-outdoor spaces, and then create this kind of fourth space, which the houses were all 3-bedroom, but I created this other fourth space so it could be a dedicated office, acoustically isolated from the rest of the home, or it could be a fourth bedroom. So building flexibility, flexibility is a design tool. Apply flexibility to your thinking, to your real estate, to your design decisions, and it'll pay dividends.